Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Right now, literally every single second, there is a silent war happening inside your body. It's not a battle fought with weapons, though, it's fought with molecules. They're tiny, they're totally invisible, and they are absolutely crucial for keeping you alive. Today, we're diving straight into the fascinating science of human nutrients. We're going to break down the source material to figure out how this fuel within us actually works. Which brings us to a really incredible mystery. Seriously, think about it for a second. The food you put on your plate literally transforms into the cells in your eyes, the strength in your bones, and even the thoughts in your head. But how? What actually turns a simple, everyday meal into a living, breathing human being? Well, that's exactly what we're going to uncover. Okay, here's our roadmap for today. First, the 6 master keys. Then, macros, the heavy lifters. Next, micros, tiny but mighty. And finally, water and perfect balance. All right, let's jump right into part 1, the 6 master keys. So, scientists have found that our health basically hinges on 6 major nutrient classes, and they're split into 2 pretty dramatically different camps: macronutrients and micronutrients. Macros, that's your carbs, proteins, and fats, are the ones we need in massive quantities. But then, on the total opposite end of the spectrum, you have your micros, vitamins and minerals. We literally only need microscopic, trace amounts of these. But hey, do not let their size fool you. Small definitely doesn't mean unimportant. If you're missing even a tiny bit of one of these micronutrients, it can quite literally bring your whole body to a grinding halt. Moving right along to section 2, macros, the heavy lifters. First up on the heavy lifting roster, we've got carbohydrates. Their main gig, serving as your body's primary source of energy. It's kind of like the gasoline in your car. Whether you're eating a tiny grain of rice or a giant slice of sourdough, your body breaks those carbs down into a simple sugar called glucose. And this glucose is the exact stuff powering almost every single cell you have. Your brain especially is practically starving for it. It runs almost entirely on glucose. And if you have leftover energy, your body is smart. It stashes it away as glycogen in your muscles and liver, like a little backup battery for later. And to put that energy into perspective, check out this surprising number: 4. Just 1 single gram of carbohydrate releases exactly 4 kilocalories of energy into your system. It's highly efficient, super fast-acting fuel. Now, if carbs are the fuel, proteins are the bricks and machinery. They're made of these long chains of amino acids, and they are the true architecture of life. They're the master builders, constantly repairing your muscles, skin, hair, and organs. But actually, scratch that. They aren't just builders. They act as enzymes, speeding up chemical reactions. They work as hormones, sending critical signals. They literally form the hemoglobin carrying oxygen in your blood. And they even build the antibodies that fight off diseases. And the best part? You find these master builders right in your fridge. Eggs, milk, lentils, beans, fish, meat. Without them, your body just can't fix itself. Okay, next up, fats. Now, for the longest time, fats got a really bad rap. They were completely misunderstood, but they are absolutely vital allies. Gram for gram, fat is actually your body's most highly concentrated energy source. But beyond just fueling us, they physically protect us. They cushion your internal organs, they keep you warm, and, this is mind-blowing, they physically form the protective membrane around every single living cell in your entire body. But, not all fats are created equal. The real secret here is prioritizing healthy fats. Think nuts, seeds, fish, and olive oil. These specific fats are putting in serious overtime behind the scenes. They help produce essential hormones, and they act like little delivery trucks carrying fat-soluble vitamins exactly where they need to go. You definitely want to pick these over the heavier, saturated stuff. When you get the balance right, fat is absolutely not the enemy. All right, let's shrink things down for section 3, micros, tiny but mighty. Kicking off our microscopic tour, we have vitamins. There are 13 essential organic compounds in this family. Now, here's the catch. Unlike carbs or fats, vitamins give you 0 energy, literally none. Instead, they are the master regulators. If you picture your body as a massive, bustling chemical factory, vitamins are the floor managers. They oversee and regulate the thousands of chemical reactions keeping you alive every single day. And this vitamin family is split into 2 very different groups. First, the fat-soluble ones, A, D, E, and K. Your body is clever, so it actually stores these in your liver and fatty tissues for a rainy day. Vitamin A keeps your eyes sharp, D builds your bones, and K helps your blood clot.
But then you have the water-soluble vitamins, like the B complex and vitamin C. Your body cannot store these at all. They just wash right through you, which means, yep, we have to replenish them every single day with foods like leafy greens and citrus.
Right alongside our vitamins, we have minerals. Now, these are inorganic elements, which, if you think about it, is kind of wild. These are literal elements drawn straight out of the earth, out of the dirt, and they get woven directly into the physical structures of our bodies to give us raw, functional power. To really drive that home, think about the number 99%. Calcium is the most abundant mineral you've got, and a staggering 99% of it is locked directly into your bones and teeth. It literally gives you your physical framework, while also quietly pulling the strings on your muscle contractions and nerve signals. Now, what happens if these tiny guys go missing? Well, the stakes are incredibly high. Miss out on your daily vitamin C, and you're looking at scurvy. Skip vitamin B1, that leads to beriberi. Iron is supposed to sit right at the center of your blood to transport oxygen. Without it, your body essentially starves for air on a cellular level, causing anemia, which leaves you totally exhausted. And iodine, you only need microscopic amounts to run your thyroid and metabolism, but a deficiency makes the thyroid swell up into a goiter. They might be tiny, but they hold immense power over us. Which brings us to our final stop, Section 4, water and perfect balance. Just wrap your head around this fraction. Nearly 2/3 of your entire body weight is just water. It is by far the single most abundant substance inside of you. And much like vitamins, water provides absolutely zero energy. But it is the foundational medium for literally all the chemistry of life. It dissolves your nutrients, it carries those nutrients to every single cell, it flushes out waste, and it keeps your body temperature in check. Honestly, you could survive for weeks without food, but you'd barely make it a few days without water. So what's the big takeaway from all this source material today? Well, the secret is balance. We've got 6 different nutrient classes, but only one body. Human health relies entirely on this perfect, delicate harmony between all of them. There is no such thing as a single miracle food, guys. Get too little of something and disease creeps in. But get too much, that can be just as dangerous. It is all about harmony. There's a quote from our source material that I just absolutely love. Every meal is a quiet act of creation. Think about that. Next time you sit down for lunch or dinner, remember that you aren't just filling an empty stomach. You are literally molecule by molecule taking the fuel from that plate and using it to rebuild yourself. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final provocative question. What are you rebuilding yourself with today? Take a second to really think about your own nutritional choices. Keep wondering, keep growing, and keep learning. Thanks so much for hanging out with me on this deep dive into the fuel within.
Fills your brain, it floods your blood, it carries literally every spark of who you are. Welcome to today's explainer. We're diving into some truly remarkable research that is going to completely redefine something we all just take for granted. I mean, we're talking about the story of the hidden ocean that keeps you alive. It's ceaseless, it's older than memory itself. And today, we're going to explore this mysterious, ancient fluid that powers your entire existence.
60%. Think about that for a second. The average adult body is 60% water. It's the literal foundation of our existence. You're not nearly as solid as you might think you are. Structurally speaking, you're essentially a really sophisticated upright puddle, or maybe an anxious cucumber. More than half of your physical mass is just a flowing dynamic fluid. But actually, that 60% figure, it hides a pretty fascinating secret.
Because your relationship with this inner tide, well, it isn't static. We actually start our lives incredibly saturated. Look at this. A newborn baby is nearly 78% water. That is the absolute wettest you will ever be in your entire life. By your first birthday, that drops to about 65%. Then you kind of level out around 60% in adulthood. But as we grow older, that water level can fall all the way down to 45%. So, in a very literal sense, we don't just live near water, we slowly, quietly dry out as we age. Crazy, right?
Okay, moving on to Section 1, where the water hides, or the thirstiest organs.
So that 60% we just talked about, it is definitely not spread evenly throughout your body. Some parts of you demand way more of the tide than others. Just take your lungs, for instance. They're actually the wettest organs you own, coming in at a staggering 83% water. Your kidneys are right behind them at 79%. And get this, Nearly 3/4 of your brain and your heart are both just water. That means your most vital organs are literally thinking and beating inside a warm, salty sea. Even your solid bones hold roughly 31% water. Really, it's only your teeth that stand nearly dry, at a mere 8%.
Right, let's zoom in. Section 2, the microscopic ocean, inside your cells.
If we zoom in past the organs, your body is made up of about 40 trillion cells. 40 trillion! And 2/3 of all your body's water lives inside them. That's the intracellular ocean, and it's where the actual chemistry of life takes place. The remaining 1/3 flows on the outside, so in the interstitial spaces between your cells and in your blood plasma. And to manage this whole shebang, your body uses sodium and potassium. Think of them as tiny guards standing at every single cell wall, maintaining the balance with just exquisite precision. Because life really lives on a knife edge of salt and water. If you tip it too far one way or the other, the cell is either going to swell right up or completely shrivel.
Which brings us to Section 3, the great transport river, blood and filtration.
You see, water doesn't just sit there, doing nothing. It's a super dynamic transit system. Your blood is nearly 80% water. And check out this truly mind-blowing fact from the research. Within just 5 minutes of taking a single sip of water, it has already reached your bloodstream. No way, right? 5 minutes. And once it's there, water acts as the ultimate universal solvent. It dissolves almost everything: glucose, proteins, oxygen, vital minerals, even the medicines you take, and it carries them all downstream to feed those 40 trillion cells we just talked about.
But, obviously, any good delivery system also has to handle waste. On the return journey, this inner river gathers up cellular waste, and your kidneys step in to clean your blood supply many times a day, pulling out all the toxins and excess water. But they don't do it alone. The hypothalamus is the real mastermind here. This tiny part of your brain is constantly measuring the salt in your blood. When you start running low on water, it signals thirst and releases hormones that literally tell the kidneys to hold water back. You are being silently, perfectly balanced every single second of the day, without even a single conscious thought.
Now for Section 4, cooling and cushioning, the body's mechanics.
Way beyond just transporting nutrients, water has two massive mechanical jobs that are, quite literally, the difference between life and death. The first is thermoregulation. Your body has to run at a razor-thin set point of 37 degrees Celsius. If you climb just a few degrees too high, your enzymes begin to fail and your brain can literally shut down. So water becomes your built-in coolant. When you start to overheat, your blood vessels dilate, meaning they widen to bring warm blood closer to the surface. Then sweat forms. And as that water evaporates off your skin, it pulls the heat right away with it. It is hands down the most powerful cooling system your body owns.
The second mechanical job, physical protection. Water cushions your joints, allowing your bones to glide over each other without grinding. Ouch, right? It bathes your spinal cord and your brain in cerebrospinal fluid. It's a liquid shock absorber, so incredibly effective that your brain basically just floats safely inside your skull. It moistens your eyes, it cushions a growing baby in the amniotic sac, and it lines literally every soft surface where your body meets the outside world. So water doesn't just keep you running, it physically keeps you from breaking apart. Okay, Section 5. When the tide drops, the dangers of dehydration.
So what happens when this perfectly balanced system starts to fail? I mean, you might think you need to be wandering lost in a desert to suffer from dehydration, but actually, just a 2% loss of your body's water is enough to trigger a massive, cascading physical toll. Your inner glowing rivers start to dim. Just a 2% drop causes fatigue, a headache, and this heavy fog rolling right over your concentration. And you want to know why? Because your blood literally thickens. Without enough water, it becomes sludgy, which means your poor heart has to work so much harder just to pump it around your body. Your temperature climbs. So, staying hydrated, it isn't optional, it is the absolute baseline condition of being alive.
But the remedy? It's astonishingly simple. 2 liters. Most of us need somewhere around 2 liters of water a day just to keep this complex machinery running smoothly. Now, sure, you might need a bit more in the heat or after a heavy workout, though it's worth noting much of this does arrive quietly through the food we eat. But man, when you drink that glass of water, the magic happens fast. Within minutes, the rivers refill, the cells plump right back to life, and that mental fog just lifts. Your body really isn't asking for much, just enough to keep the tide coming in.
Finally, Section 6, the ancient inner ocean, a cosmic connection.
This brings us to a truly profound perspective. Because the water inside you has a history that goes way, way beyond your own life. I absolutely love this quote from the research. The water inside you has been here for billions of years. Just step back for a second and let that wonder deepen. The exact molecules of water currently cushioning your brain,
They once fell as ancient rain and froze in prehistoric glaciers. They've been carried by ancient rivers and drunk by creatures long extinct. You aren't separate from the ocean. You are literally a temporary vessel that it moves through. Which leaves us with this final thought for you. The next time you lift a glass to your lips, what are you really holding? It's not just a refreshing drink. You're holding the quiet, ancient ocean that carries you. You are replenishing the tide within. I really hope this explainer completely changed how you look at a simple glass of water. Drink up, take care of your inner ocean, and as always, keep learning. Hey, welcome to the explainer. I want you to just stop for a second and really look closer at yourself. I mean, beneath your skin lies this sprawling, incredibly complex biological civilization made up of literally trillions of cells. It's basically a microscopic superfactory, and it is working tirelessly, without rest, every single second of your life.
But here's the thing. This massive, humming internal empire that you carry around every day, it doesn't just run on its own. So, what invisible engines actually keep you alive? Well, the answer lies in an elite class of totally invisible molecules.
And the stakes here are viscerally high. We're talking life or death. Without these specific molecules, your bones literally turn to dust. Your brain loses its spark. Your blood just stops flowing. We're talking about a secret, ongoing war for human survival that happens entirely on a microscopic level.
Okay, let's dive into this with Act 1, The Discovery.
You see, for millennia, humanity fought a silent executioner. Imagine being a sailor on a long, grueling ocean voyage, just withering away from scurvy. Their skin bruising, old wounds reopening, teeth literally falling out. It's grim stuff. And for centuries, they blamed foul air or even curses. They were entirely unaware that they were just starving for a single molecule. It actually wasn't until 1912 that a Polish biochemist named Casimir Funk isolated a crystalline compound that cured a completely different but equally devastating nerve disease called beriberi.
And this brilliantly illustrates how the term was born. Funk called his life-saving discovery a vitamine, a vital amine. He had finally identified the missing puzzle pieces of human biology. The raw materials absolutely necessary for life itself.
All right, let's keep the momentum going. Act 2, the two logistics networks.
So, the crucial point is this. Modern science has mapped out exactly how these compounds operate, and the magic number is 13. The human body requires exactly 13 microessential organic compounds to survive. And because we can't synthesize most of them ourselves, we have to import them.
Now, once they're inside you, these vitamins are split into two incredibly efficient but distinct logistical systems. On one side, you have the water-soluble network. These are your fast-acting, short-term workers flowing right through your bloodstream. And on the other side, the fat-soluble reserves, your slow-release biochemical hormones, securely stored away for long-term deployment.
Let's look at that water-soluble powerhouse team first. This consists of vitamin C and the elite 8 B vitamins. Think of them as your daily emergency responders. They dissolve immediately right into your rushing bloodstream, diving straight into those massive mitochondria factories inside your cells to unlock energy, repair DNA, and build nerve tissues. But there is a catch. They can't easily be stored. Whatever your body doesn't use today is simply flushed out. So daily deployment and replenishment? Absolutely critical. Contrast that with your fat-soluble reserves. Vitamins A, D, E, and K. Now, these are entirely different beasts. They do not dissolve in water. They actually require lipids, or fats, to be absorbed. So instead of traveling light and fast, they act as slow-release shields and hormones, and they get archived deep within your liver and your deep golden lipid cells. They just rest quietly in these subterranean biological caves, sometimes waiting for weeks or even months until the body specifically calls them into action. Let's move to and see how this builds into Act 3, the cellular front line.
To really see how these fat-soluble reserves deploy into absolute chaos, let's travel to the dark landscape at the back of your eye, the retina. Right here, vitamin A molecules physically lock into complex protein receptors to construct a compound called rhodopsin. The second they bind, they spark a wave of electric white light that travels down your optic nerve. Without this exact chemical reaction, the world would just fade into permanent night blindness. Wild, right?
Now, let's travel deep inside your hollow skeletal system. Picture this.
calcium crystals are constantly flying around, completely unguided, kind of like chaotic meteors. Suddenly, a commanding golden wave sweeps through. This is vitamin D. Acting as this master hormone gatekeeper, it magnetizes those chaotic calcium particles, forcing them to instantly bond and solidify. It literally forges your internal bone armor, creating this unbreakable structural lattice. Out on the volatile front lines of cellular defense, your cell membranes are constantly under attack. Jagged, destructive free radical molecules are continuously trying to tear them apart from the inside out. But enter vitamin E. It patrols the area, acting as an expanding, shimmering emerald shield, your primary antioxidant armor. It catches those free radicals and just dissolves them into dust before they can even breach the cellular wall.
And when disaster strikes, say a microscopic tear in a blood vessel wall, vitamin K initiates the emergency protocols. Platelets scramble, and vitamin K molecules spark intensely, quite literally like tiny welding torches. They rapidly weave a dense web of glowing fibrin threads together to clot your blood, sealing the wound and literally saving your life.
Which brings us to the outro, the micro-universe within. Zooming back out from those intense microscopic trenches, past your organs and back to the surface, we realize a really profound truth. As the research perfectly notes, they do not provide energy directly like calories, but without them, the engine stalls. These 13 invisible giants are the true architects of your vitality.
And where do we actually get these incredible engines? Well, we get them from our daily choices. They are sourced directly from the simple, vibrant colors of the whole foods you eat. I'm talking about the dark leafy greens, the bright berries, the rich nuts, and the fresh fish. That beautifully prepared, colorful plate of food, that is the direct supply line keeping your biological super factory running. Because at the end of the day, you are a walking universe. Incredibly complex, miraculously balanced. Every single meal is a chance to arm your cellular front line. So, I have to ask you, are you protecting your engines? We literally spend billions of dollars every single year fighting what we usually think of as our ultimate biological enemy. You know the drill. We count its calories, we try to hide in the mirror, and we constantly vilify it. I'm talking, of course, about body fat. But as we're going to see in today's explainer, almost everything we thought we knew about fat might actually be totally backwards. We're about to uncover a hidden, incredibly complex world right beneath your skin.
There's a quote that perfectly captures this. We wage war against it, but beneath your skin lies a sprawling, hyper-intelligent empire holding the keys to your survival. Think about that. We usually treat fat like dead weight, right? Just this annoying stuff we're stuck with. But in reality, it listens to you. It talks directly to your brain. It actually commands various systems in your body. It's this highly intelligent, sprawling empire that is actively working around the clock to keep you alive. So let's look at exactly how it pulls that off.
For decades, even the medical community basically viewed white fat cells as, well, biological trash bags. We just thought of them as a passive dumping ground for that extra slice of pizza we probably shouldn't have eaten at midnight. But here's the thing. Fat is absolutely not a trash bag. It is an elegant endocrine engine. In fact, it's the body's largest endocrine organ. That means it's actively pumping out crucial hormones that regulate your entire biological system. To really appreciate this engine, we got to strip away all the cultural noise and zoom in past the skin, right down into the cellular matrix itself.
Okay, so here we are at the microscopic level. Meet the adipocyte. That's just a fancy word for your standard white fat cell. And when you really look at it, it's structurally fascinating. The cell is completely dominated by this single massive droplet of golden lipid. I mean, this droplet is so huge that it literally pushes the cell's nucleus all the way to the absolute edge of the membrane. It looks like this smooth, glowing golden globe. But don't be fooled, this isn't just inert storage. This golden reservoir is literally the reason human beings exist today. Without this super efficient setup, our ancient ancestors would have completely perished during their very first brutal winter.
Now, because these cells act as an endocrine engine, they're constantly weaving vital chemical messengers straight into your bloodstream. They're like the currency of survival. First up, we've got leptin. Think of this as the satiety hormone. It travels directly to your brain to signal, hey, we're full, which controls your appetite and balances your energy. Then we have adiponectin. This is an incredible hormone that essentially tunes your cells to accept glucose, managing your insulin sensitivity.
Every single minute of every single day, your fat is having a continuous conversation with the rest of your body to keep your metabolism humming along.
But here's the catch. Not all fat is created equal. In the adipose empire, survival is basically a real estate game. Where the fat is located in your body changes absolutely everything about how it behaves and how it impacts your health. Just moving a few inches deeper into the body shifts fat from being this protective friend into a highly volatile foe.
Take subcutaneous fat, for example. That's the fat located right beneath your skin. It's the stuff you can pinch. And honestly, it's relatively benign. It's soft, and it essentially acts like a protective thermal coat, keeping you warm and cushioning your organs. Totally safe. But if we descend deeper into the dark abdominal cavity, we run into visceral fat. This is the fat that wraps itself tightly around your vital organs, your heart, your liver, your intestines. And unlike that safe thermocoat on the surface, visceral fat is incredibly volatile. It actually acts as an active biochemical weapon right inside your body.
So the really crucial point here is that visceral fat behaves like a rogue state within your biological empire. When this deep abdominal fat gets overloaded, it literally begins to suffocate under the sheer weight of its own growth. And in its distress, it starts secreting these harmful inflammatory proteins. Because of where it's located, it dumps these inflammatory cytokines directly into the liver via the portal vein. So this isn't just passive weight you're carrying around. This rogue state is sparking an invisible, slow-burning fire of metabolic dysfunction throughout your entire system. That is where the true danger of excess weight actually lies.
Well, luckily, your body is incredibly smart, and it definitely hasn't left you defenseless against this rogue state. You actually possess a powerful antidote built right into your physiology. If white fat is your fuel tank for storage, your body also contains a radically different, energy-burning ally. It's literally a furnace inside you, hiding deep within your neck and upper shoulders.
Meet brown adipose tissue, or BAT for short. This is your biological blast furnace. Unlike those white fat cells we looked at earlier with their single massive lipid droplet, brown fat cells are multilocular, meaning they have a bunch of smaller lipid droplets. But the real magic is what packs the space between them, thousands and thousands of iron-rich mitochondria. These cellular powerhouses are what give brown fat its deep amber hue. And their specialty? Well, they don't store energy at all. They specialize in converting calories directly into pure, non-shivering heat. They are perfectly designed to aggressively burn right through the energy your white fat is trying to store.
And this all builds into this absolutely incredible biological chain reaction known as the browning effect. Just imagine you step out into a freezing snowstorm, or you start a really intense workout. The exact moment your body senses that intense cold or physical demand, a specialized protein inside the brown fat called UCP1 kicks into gear. It essentially short-circuits those iron-rich mitochondria, forcing them to violently burn energy to generate heat instead of capturing it for storage. But wait, it gets even more amazing. Scattered inside your regular white storage fat are these sleeping giants known as beige fat cells. When triggered by this colder exercise, these beige cells actually wake up. They change color, they develop internal droplets, and they transform from passive storage units into active fat-burning furnaces. You can literally change the function of your fat. How crazy is that?
Now, to really understand why our fat behaves the way it does, we need to zoom out from that microscopic cellular level and look at the macro level of human history. We are currently living through a massive evolutionary paradox. You see, the crisis of obesity and metabolic dysfunction we're seeing today isn't happening because our bodies are somehow broken. It's happening because our environment has changed drastically, while our biology has remained exactly the same. We're living in a stark evolutionary mismatch. Just think about the Paleolithic environment where our biology evolved. Our ancestors faced a constant daily threat of famine and starvation. Today, in our modern environment, we're surrounded by infinite daily calories. Back then, humans had to survive in harsh frozen tundras, which forced that brown fat to constantly burn energy just to keep them warm. Today, we live in climate-controlled spaces with basically zero real winter exposure. They faced immense physical demand every single day. We, on the other hand, face glowing refrigerators packed with hyper-processed foods at midnight. Our biology evolved to protect us from a famine that, in the modern world, simply never arrives. So your fat isn't actually failing you. It's doing exactly what it was perfectly designed to do.
So, I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought. Is your body really an enemy to be conquered, or is it an ecosystem seeking balance? When we finally understand those elegant endocrine engines working hard to keep us alive, and we grasp the vital difference between protective subcutaneous fat and volatile visceral fat, and we realize the incredible energy-burning power of those brown and beige fat furnaces just waiting to be awakened, well, it changes our entire perspective. We really need to stop viewing our biology as a trash bag to be starved away. It's a complex, whispering ecosystem. It is time we start respecting the adipose empire within. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. See you next time.
Welcome to This Explainer. Right now, whether you're hitting the gym, working on a complex project, or literally just sitting there listening to me, there is a massive, invisible engine roaring inside of you. Today, we're mapping the exact journey of how that engine gets its primary fuel. We're going to follow this process all the way from the plate in front of you, down through the biological refinery of your digestive tract, and ultimately into the deepest, microscopic recesses of your cells.
We're tracking what is basically a golden molecule. And get this, it's essentially forged by starlight through photosynthesis. It is wild to think about, right? The energy from a star 93 million miles away is ultimately what your cells are begging for to keep the whole machine running. Without it, the machine just stops. So this isn't just about what you're eating for a midday snack. This is the untold epic of the fuel that defines human survival, cellular communication, and peak physical performance. Every single move you make relies on this fundamental exchange of energy.
All right, part 1, the ultimate biological currency.
So, let's look at the carbohydrate itself. You've probably seen the chemical formula, CnH2ON. It is this incredibly elegant little structure built entirely from carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. When you look at this crystalline ring, you aren't just looking at basic chemistry. You are looking at pure, locked-in potential energy. The bonds holding those carbon and hydrogen atoms together are absolutely rich in energy, capturing that solar power we just talked about. But here's the thing, your body can't just use this energy straight out of nature. It requires a highly coordinated, frankly amazing refinement process to transform these raw resources into a usable biological currency that your cells can actually spend.
Which brings us to part 2, refining the fuel.
Out in the real world, this fuel comes packaged in some wildly different ways. On one side, you've got complex carbohydrates. These are your polysaccharides, like starches and fibers. Think of a thick, rustic loaf of sourdough bread or a hearty bowl of steel-cut oats. These are massive, intricate, architectural chains of energy, and they take some serious biological effort to dismantle. On the other hand, you have simple carbohydrates. Monosaccharides like glucose and fructose, or disaccharides like the sucrose in everyday candy. These are fast-acting, highly accessible sugars. But you know what's fascinating? Regardless of the architecture, whether you eat a complex starch or a simple sugar, your body's ultimate goal is exactly the same. It wants to strip it down to its purest, most basic molecular form so it can actually be absorbed.
Your digestive tract is basically a highly advanced biological refinery. The absolute second food hits your tongue, the demolition starts. Salivary amylase, which is an enzyme in your mouth, starts breaking down those long, complex chains. Then the stomach takes over, acting like a highly acidic processing tank to continue the mechanical and chemical breakdown. But the real magic, that happens down in the small intestine. Down there, specialized digestive enzymes act like little nanobots, aggressively clipping those complex chains until literally nothing is left but individual glowing spheres of pure energy. Your body then absorbs these single molecules directly across the intestinal wall, straight into your bloodstream as pure glucose.
Moving to part 3, the blood sugar crisis. Picture this, a massive tidal wave of newly refined glucose is suddenly flooding out of your intestinal walls and into your blood vessels. It's a huge surge of fuel, but honestly, it's an immediate crisis. Too much fuel in the blood at one time is highly toxic. It can seriously damage blood vessels and nerves. So the system demands strict balance. Enter the pancreas. It acts as the ultimate control tower here. When it detects that rising blood glucose, it deploys a master key, insulin. Insulin rushes through the bloodstream, locks into cellular receptors, and swings these massive organic vault doors open to absorb the surge, moving glucose out of the blood and safely into the tissues. Now, if the opposite happens and your blood sugar drops too low between meals, the pancreas releases a different hormone called glucagon. Glucagon signals your liver to release its stored energy right back into the blood. It is this constant, brilliant tightrope walk of supply and demand happening inside you all day long.
Part 4. Storage vaults and overflow. Now, your body doesn't just waste that surplus energy. Through a process called glycogenesis, the liver and skeletal muscles weave the incoming glucose into a dense, coral-like network called glycogen.
Think of it as a highly accessible emergency battery pack. But, and this is a big but, these biological battery packs have a very strict ceiling. We can only store roughly 500 grams total. That's about 100 grams in the liver and 400 grams in the muscles. To put that into perspective, 500 grams of glycogen is roughly 2,000 calories of stored energy. That is just enough fuel to power you through roughly 20 miles of continuous running before the tank runs completely dry. So, it's a super efficient system, but a remarkably limited one.
So that begs the question, what exactly happens when those geometric vaults in the liver and muscles totally max out, but glucose is still pouring into the system? Well, the body can't just ignore it.
It is forced to activate its infinite backup plan. The surplus glucose undergoes a process called de novo lipogenesis. That translates literally to the new creation of fat. The excess carbohydrates are chemically rewritten. They lose that golden glucose luster and are fused together to become heavy, dense oil droplets of adipose tissue. It's an absolutely brilliant evolutionary mechanism designed to store unlimited excess energy for long-term survival. For our ancestors, this pathway was a literal lifesaver. It allowed them to store the bounty of summer to survive the famine of winter. But keep in mind, it fundamentally shifts the nature of the fuel. It changes it from a quick-burning carbohydrate into a slow-burning fat, locking that energy away from when it is absolutely needed.
All right, part 5, firing the cellular furnace. Let's look at what happens when demand suddenly spikes. Maybe you're lifting something incredibly heavy, or sprinting off the blocks, or deeply focusing on a really complex problem. Those stored glycogen strands violently shatter back down into pure glucose. Out in the cell's cytoplasm, a process called glycolysis literally splits the glucose in half, turning it into pyruvate. Then it plunges straight into the mitochondrion, the actual roaring powerhouse of the cell. Here, through the citric acid cycle and oxidative phosphorylation, the molecule is completely incinerated. The chemical bonds of the glucose are systematically broken apart. This complex sequence captures the energy released from those bonds and detonates to yield a torrent of ATP, adenosine triphosphate. ATP is the literal electric spark of human movement. It's the exact universal energy currency that makes your muscle fibers contract, your cellular pumps operate, and your thoughts fire across your synapses.
And it's not just about muscle power either. Carbohydrates are absolutely crucial for your brain and your red blood cells. In fact, it serves as their near-exclusive fuel. They rely heavily on a constant, steady supply of glucose, just to keep you online. Carbs also construct glycoproteins and glycolipids. You can think of these as the physical communication antennas on the outside of your cells that let them recognize and talk to each other. Plus, by keeping your carbohydrate stores topped up, you actually spare your body's precious protein. Instead of breaking down your hard-earned muscle tissue just to survive an energy deficit, your body can confidently use dietary protein for tissue repair and growth, relying on the carbs to do the heavy lifting of basic daily energy production.
And finally, part 6, the cycle continues.
You know, people love to debate nutrition online, constantly labeling macronutrients as entirely good or entirely bad. But the science shows us something far more profound. Carbohydrate is neither hero nor villain. It is simply power. It is this ancient, elegant cycle of fuel and flame. As this starlight-forged molecule burns inside your cells at this exact second, driving your attention and every beat of your heart, the ultimate question really is, will you respect the fuel, understand the science, and truly master your own machine? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.
Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're taking a completely cinematic journey far, far beneath the surface of what you see in the mirror. We're going to dive deep into the microscopic machinery that is, literally, at this very second, keeping you alive. It's this unseen world of just unbelievable complexity, and the whole shebang is running on a truly spectacular system of microscopic engineering. Right now, inside you, 1 trillion microscopic wars are being fought. Think about that for a second. Entire cities are being built, messages are being fired across lightning-fast neural pathways, and oxygen is being aggressively pushed through rushing rivers of blood. And you know, absolutely none of this happens by chance. It's all directed by the most sophisticated molecular machinery on Earth, actual masterpieces of biological origami. So we're not just talking about basic biology today. We're exploring the entire universe of protein. Okay, let's dive into this. The word protein actually comes from the Greek word proteos, which means of first importance. And honestly, for a system this incredibly complex, that's kind of an understatement.
Because they aren't just spare parts in the machine, they are the functional workhorses driving almost every single reaction, structure, and defense mechanism that's keeping you alive right now.
Section 1. The building blocks, amino acids and folding.
To really appreciate these biological machines, we've got to start right at their micro-level origins. And surprisingly, it all begins with a pretty small number, 20. There are just 20 standard building blocks, which we call amino acids. It's actually a lot like how the letters of the alphabet can be rearranged to write endless libraries of books. These 20 standard amino acids are strung together in all sorts of combinations, entirely guided by the hidden instructions in your DNA. This creates a linear chain with, frankly, infinite potential. But here's the catch. A simple, straight chain can't build a human being.
Let's move on and see how this builds, because a linear chain literally has no function until it folds. Driven by invisible chemical forces, this chain twists into secondary structures. These beautiful spirals we call alpha helices, or flattened rigid shapes called beta-pleated sheets. From there, it snaps into a highly specific, super complex 3D shape, which is its tertiary structure. Some of them even lock together with others to form massive, fully operational quaternary complexes. In this microscopic universe, shape dictates destiny. The exact 3D fold of a protein determines exactly what it's going to do in your body.
Section 2. Structural architects, collagen and keratin. And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer, diverse power of these proteins as we move from invisible building blocks to tangible architecture. Take collagen, for example. Think about your skin, your bones, your tendons. Collagen forms these incredibly dense, interlocking triple helix cables. By weight, these protein fibers are actually stronger than steel. They are continuously holding your very architecture together against the crushing weight of gravity. Now compare that to keratin. Whether the cells are dead or alive, protein is there to protect you. Keratin tightly cross-links to form your hair and nails, acting as this hardened, completely water-resistant shield against the harsh external world. Two entirely different structures, built for entirely different purposes, but both born from those same folded amino acids.
Section 3. Engines of motion, enzymes and muscle speed. Now, proteins aren't just static scaffolding either. They are highly dynamic engines. Just look at this staggering scale, 1 million times. Without a little help, the chemical reactions required to keep you alive right now would literally take thousands of years to naturally occur. Enter enzymes. Enzymes are highly specialized biological catalysts. Basically, they're proteins that grab target molecules, fit them perfectly into a custom-shaped groove, distort them, and then fire off a chemical reaction up to 1 million times faster than normal. A heartbeat happens precisely because an enzyme willed it so. How wild is that? And when it comes to actual physical movement, proteins are absolutely doing the heavy lifting there too. Every single time you go for a run, lift a weight, or honestly, even just blink your eyes, you are relying on actin and myosin. These are motor proteins that live right inside your muscle fibers. When they get activated, they physically walk across one another in thousands of tiny interlocking steps. They pull against each other just like a microscopic tug-of-war team. And those microscopic steps, they scale all the way up to create the brute force of human movement. Section 4. Transport and wardens, hemoglobin and antibodies. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how specialized these operators get when we plunge into the rushing crimson rivers of your bloodstream. Take hemoglobin, for instance. This is a complex 4-part quaternary protein matrix, and its absolute sole mission is transport. It binds super tightly to oxygen in your lungs and hauls it through the rushing blood out to the furthest outposts of your body. And then we have antibodies. When an enemy invades, your immune system deploys these precision-molded Y-shaped wardens. They act as your internal defense force, constantly patrolling the plasma, recognizing and locking onto those dark, spike-covered viruses and bacteria, and then just completely neutralizing those pathogens. Section 5. The code and synthesis. Ribosomes. So you might be wondering, where exactly does this endless supply of machinery come from? How does your body continuously churn out these engines and architects and wardens? Well, the answer lies deep inside your cells, in massive automated factories called ribosomes. These are literally the factories of life. A strand of messenger RNA, which carries the genetic blueprints copied directly from your DNA, slides right through the ribosome. The ribosome reads this code and rapidly stamps out a brand new protein chain, linking it up amino acid by amino acid. And it's doing this at a completely staggering pace, assembling thousands of new proteins every single second. It really proves this profoundly beautiful truth. We aren't merely consumers of protein. Down at the cellular level, we are the ultimate creators of it. Section 6. The Symphony of Self. The Human Tapestry. So the crucial point is that when we zoom out from that intense microscopic factory floor, through the beating heart, and all the way back up to the surface, the big picture becomes crystal clear. You are not just a random collection of cells. You are a living, breathing symphony orchestrated entirely by proteins. From the structural strength in your stride to the enzymes facilitating the very thoughts firing in your mind right now, they are the literal fabric of life. They are the master builders of exactly who you are. Which leaves us with one final, deeply resonant thought to ponder as we wrap up this explainer. With trillions of these molecular machines tirelessly constructing, defending, and powering you every single second, what will your biological master builders allow you to create or experience in the world today? Really think about that as you go about your day. Thanks for joining me on this incredible journey inward. Welcome back to The Explainer. Okay, today we're going to completely shatter the way you look at your own body. We're pulling right back the curtain on this hidden universe of minerals inside you. I want you to just drop the whole idea that you're merely a fragile creature made up of soft tissue. Instead, I want you to start thinking of yourself as an ancient, highly conductive planetary machine. Because today, we are exploring the raw elemental forces that literally keep your biological engine running. I mean, consider this quote right here. You think of yourself as flesh and blood, but peel back the layers. When you actually do that, the reality is frankly awe-inspiring. Deep inside your cells, literally running through your veins at this exact moment, lies the actual dust of exploding stars. These elements, they were forged in cosmic fire billions of years ago, floating through the cold vacuum of space before eventually coalescing into the Earth, into your food, and finally, into you. So the absolute crucial point we need to establish is this. You are an electric machine. And just like any machine, if you unplug it or if you rip out its conductive wiring, the current stops, right? Without a very specific, carefully balanced set of these ancient raw elements running through your system, your heart doesn't beat, your brain doesn't fire, and your whole biological current just goes dark. Okay, let's really dive into this. We can basically divide your body's elemental workforce into two main camps here. On one side, we've got the macrominerals. These are your biological heavyweights. Your body needs these in massive structural quantities just to build the basic scaffolding of your biology. And then on the flip side, we have the trace minerals. Now, definitely don't let the name fool you here. You might only need microscopic amounts of these guys, but they are absolute dictators. If they go missing, the consequences are literally deadly. Which brings us to Act 1. The biological skyscraper. Let's start by looking at those heavyweights. Think of your body as this massive, towering feat of engineering, and the undisputed structural steel of this biological skyscraper? That's calcium. Now, most of us know it builds our skeletal fortress, right? That interlocking matrix of bone that holds us upright, but its job is actually way more dynamic than just sitting static in your bones. Calcium acts as this rapid-fire emergency signal. Every single time your heart beats, a flood of calcium literally rushes into your muscle cells. It snaps them into action, forcing the contraction that pumps life-giving blood through your veins. No calcium? Simply put, no heartbeat. Now, look at the sheer volume of this number, 300 plus. Because while calcium is the structural steel, it's also incredibly volatile. It needs a master architect to keep it from causing absolute chaos, like hardening your arteries. Enter magnesium. Magnesium single-handedly manages and operates over 300 biochemical factories inside your body. It directs the calcium, tells it exactly where to go, and basically keeps your biological skyscraper from collapsing under its own weight. But magnesium's architectural genius doesn't just stop at crowd control. It's directly responsible for firing up ATP. If you remember back to biology class, ATP is the literal cellular fuel of life. Think of it as this beautiful, glowing green energy trail that powers absolutely everything you do. Without magnesium standing by to assemble and activate these tiny energy packets, your cells would just starve in the dark, no matter how much food you ate. Moving right along to Act 2, the lightning grid. So, we have the physical structure, we have the fuel, but a machine needs wiring, right? It needs a grid. Welcome to the lightning grid. These are the critical electrolytes that allow us to move, to think, and to feel at breakneck speeds. To command your body, you require lightning. And sodium and potassium, they are the gatekeepers of this electricity. Together, they form what's known as the sodium-potassium pump. Just imagine these glowing neon blue particles of sodium and hot orange particles of potassium. They sit on exact opposite sides of your cell membranes, basically staring each other down. By holding these distinct charges apart, your body creates a literal biological battery primed and totally ready to release its energy. Let's walk through exactly how this rapid-fire action plays out. Step 1, the ions are separated, building up that potential energy. Step 2, the pump activates, and it pushes these ions back and forth through these microscopic gates in the cell wall. And guys, here's the staggering part. It does this millions of times a second. Millions. Step 3, through this relentless high-speed exchange, pure electrical voltage is generated right there in your microscopic biology.
And why does all this matter? Because that voltage is you. That electrical charge is exactly what lets a thought leap across the synapses of your brain in a brilliant flash of microscopic lightning. It's the exact current that races down a neural pathway to let a muscle flex in a split second. Your highest, most complex thoughts and your fastest reflexes are entirely dependent on this microscopic lightning grid staying perfectly, flawlessly balanced.
And that takes us to Act 3, the microscopic dictators. Now we're descending from the towering structures and those high-voltage grids into a much, much stealthier domain. Let's look at this roster, starting with iron, our roaring fire. Fun fact for you, you actually have enough iron in your body right now to forge a small 2-inch metal nail. Literally. Think of that red iron ore buried deep in the earth. That exact same ore is flowing in your blood right now. Its specific magnetic and chemical properties allow it to bind perfectly to oxygen spheres. So every single time you inhale, iron captures that oxygen and turns your breath into a roaring internal fire that keeps your tissues alive and flourishing. Next up on the roster is zinc, which basically operates as your internal shield and elite security force. Zinc enzymes are kind of like microscopic metallic drones constantly patrolling your biology. They read your DNA's master blueprint to ensure things are built correctly, they assemble vital defensive proteins, and, incredibly, they actively hunt down cellular invaders. It's a highly specialized, ruthless defense mechanism just operating quietly in the background 24/7. Finally, tucked right into your throat sits iodine, the ocean-born element. This acts as the ultimate fuel regulator for your entire body. We need so little of it, literally just a few micrograms. But if this ocean element goes missing, your thyroid stalls out entirely, your whole metabolism collapses, and that roaring internal fire we just talked about, it goes completely dangerously cold. It's absolutely wild to think that our energy relies so heavily on just a microscopic trace of the sea. Which brings us to our outro, a geological wonder. As we wrap up the explainer today, I really want to pull back the lens. We've zoomed way in on the biological factories, the lightning-fast pumps, and the microscopic security drones. But let's return to that awe-inspiring cosmic perspective. Take a moment to truly internalize this. You are not just a collection of organic matter. You are a walking, breathing geological wonder. You were forged in the fiery heart of ancient stars. You were mined from the earth beneath your feet. And right now, at this very second, that cosmic history is alive and pulsing in your veins. Which brings us to our final thought for this explainer. You've seen the structural steel, the electrical grids, and those microscopic dictators that keep your planetary machine running. The biological current is entirely in your hands. So I have to ask you, what will you do to protect the ancient elements that make you human? Thank you so much for exploring with me today. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.